Welcome to Catholic Connection with Teresa Tomeo, keeping you connected to your faith and your world. Teresa tackles the issues of faith and culture, the pro-life message, and media awareness. And now, here's Teresa Tomeo.
Happy Thursday. It is Thursday, June 18th, 2026. Hope you're having a terrific day, and we're so glad you joined us here on EWTN's Catholic Connection for another dynamic show. Thanks to our dynamic team back at the ranch in Irondale, who always brings us such great guests. Okay, so it's a Thursday, and you know what that means if you're a regular listener. We have our very own Father Mitch joining us today for two segments on cultural connections. But of course, we have to ask him how his big 50th anniversary celebration went. We're so proud of him. We're so grateful to the gifts that he's given the church as a priest over the past 50 years. So we'll get an update, and then we'll also get his take on the Memorandum of Agreement, which is set to be signed tomorrow with the vice president there. And also, of course, President Trump has been weighing in. We'll have some clips from him off the top of the news. But Father Mitch is with us for two segments this morning in the first hour, hour number one of Catholic Connection. And then somebody with whom you're also familiar, I think, if you're a regular listener. If you're not, you really should listen to him maybe on occasion. He's not too bad. Actually, he's fantastic. We're very good friends. We do this constantly to each other. We tease each other. It's all in good fun, trust me. But I wanted to get Ray's expertise on a few stories that are making headlines, including a report that came out not too long ago about the well-being of children declining after the pandemic. And I also want to get his take. I don't know if we're going to be able to fit this in 20 minutes, but knowing Ray, he can do it. The UK, the United Kingdom, banning social media for children under 16. We now have Australia, India, the UK, Canada. We discussed this in the second hour of Catholic Connection yesterday on EWTN's Radio Extra with Donna Rice-Hughes from Enough is Enough. But I want to get Ray's take on this in terms of, I'm sure he's for it, but how he thinks this will help the situation and what we can do to support parents. And then also parental responsibility. The story about the White House terror plot and the mom in Ohio turning in her son. The responsibility and the wisdom that woman had, even though she was obviously very heartbroken to find out her son may have been involved in something very sinister. She wasn't sure what it was at the time, but she was very concerned, so she called police. Compared to some other news stories where parents don't want to take responsibility for what their children did. So we'll take a look at those stories, some pretty big stories, and check in with the one, the only Dr. Ray Guarendi, a fantastic psychologist and, of course, daily host here at EWTN Radio. In the second hour on EWTN's Radio Extra, a few weeks ago, my dear friend Vanessa Den Hargamo sent me a wonderful video, and it made so much sense. It's from a Christian psychiatrist. His name is Dr. Daniel Amen. He's a physician, a double board certified psychiatrist, award-winning researcher, best-selling author, and speaker. He did a real short clip, but a very powerful clip on the physical impact of saying the Lord's Prayer every day. And I thought it would be neat to share that with you because of the gospel for today, with our Lord teaching us how to pray. It makes so much sense because God is the great physician. He knows us inside and out. He created us, that this prayer he knew would bring us great comfort. And it is a beautiful statement that he makes about the very positive mental and physical effects these words, these particular words that we say in the Lord's Prayer have on us. So I'm really looking forward to sharing that with you. And then we'll also talk about what our Catholic faith, he's an evangelical brother in the Lord, what our Catholic faith teaches us about the importance of the Lord's Prayer. And then we'll wrap up the show this morning in hour number two with Camille Pauley. She's co-founder of a beautiful ministry. It's called Healing the Culture, and they're expanding their digital access to their programs. And part of their mission really is to help people have a real commitment to protecting the dignity of every human life. So it's not just for people in pro-life ministry, but all of us in the everyday world, the laity, understanding how important it is for us to be able to explain and to enact a culture of life. They're expanding. They've got great programs already, and she'll be with us for two segments. So that's the show, as we say, for today on a Thursday morning, June 18th. The weather, we've got some problems out there, folks. An outbreak of severe thunderstorms is expected across portions of Illinois and Indiana this evening. Intense tornadoes, paths of damaging gusts and hail in excess of 2 inches in diameter. 2 inches. Tropical Storm Arthur continuing to produce strong winds across upper Texas and Louisiana this evening. as well as potentially life-threatening flooding across southern Louisiana into Mississippi. That's your rundown, as we say in the biz, and the weather for today. It's already 5 minutes past the hour. Need to get started with the news on a Thursday here on EWTN. President Trump praising the agreement with Iran. Speaking at the G7 summit in France, he said the deal is monumental.
We reached an agreement with Iran that achieves everything we set out to accomplish, everything and much more. Ending the current conflict, reopening the Strait of Hormuz.
He added that global leaders are thrilled with the agreement as well. A 14-point memorandum of understanding between the U.S. and Iran is set to be signed very soon, especially tomorrow. That's what they're saying. The agreement calls for negotiations to continue for 2 months to reach a final agreement to end the war. Democrats, though, and even some Republicans are expressing skepticism about the framework set to be signed on Friday. Most of the concern comes from Republicans surrounding reports that claim the U.S. will send funds to Iran. But the Vice President, J.D. Vance, says that's simply not true.
Not a single cent of American money under any circumstance, no matter what the Iranians do, goes to Iran.
Vance says the agreement does allow Iran to reach peaceful benchmarks, which would then allow other countries in the region to invest in Iranian infrastructure. He adds the agreement does state Iran must never develop or buy a nuclear weapon. His boss, President Trump, again insisting it's a good deal that will open the Strait of Hormuz, as you just heard, and stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon as further negotiations are set after the signing. And Devin Watkins with Vatican News reports Pope Leo is expressing his hopes for peace in the Middle East as the U.S. and Iran prepare to sign that agreement, but he's also appealing for an end to the war in Ukraine.
As he held his weekly general audience on Wednesday, Pope Leo XIV appealed for Iran and the United States to continue along the path of dialogue and cooperation. The two countries are expected to sign a memorandum of understanding on Friday after nearly 4 months of war. The Pope called the agreement an encouraging result of patient work of dialogue and negotiation. He thanked the third-party countries that have worked to facilitate peace negotiations.
Auspico che questo accordo.
I hope, he said, that this agreement may help strengthen mutual trust, security, and stability in the Middle East, promoting paths of dialogue and cooperation among peoples. The United States and Israel launched airstrikes on Iran on February 28th, targeting the country's nuclear and ballistic missile programs and killing its supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Iran responded with counterstrikes against Israel and U.S. bases and allies in the Gulf region. It also disrupted shipping through the Strait of Hormuz, which led to a spike in crude oil and petrol prices across the globe. At the audience, Pope Leo also lamented the growing number of deaths in Ukraine. Russia has recently intensified its attacks on the country, especially on Ukrainian cities and civilian sites.
Tante vittime innocenti, soccorritori uccisi.
There are many innocent victims, rescuers killed, churches and places of cultural heritage devastated by flames, he said. The Pope added he is close to all those who mourn their loved ones, to the wounded, and to those who, amid violence, continue courageously to serve life. Pope Leo XIV invited everyone to pray for an end to the war in Ukraine.
Invito tutti a pregare.
I invite everyone to pray that this war may end, he said. Let us ask the Lord to open paths of dialogue, to extinguish hatred, and to make a just and lasting peace possible. I'm Devin Watkins.
And in a telegram released yesterday, the Holy Father expressing his closeness to and condolences upon learning of the passing of Cardinal Camille Pauley. He was a Vicar General Emeritus of the Diocese of Rome and the former head of the Italian Bishops' Conference. He passed away earlier this week at the age of 95, the Holy Father remembering him as an experienced and wise brother characterized by deep faith, keen intelligence, and a far-sighted vision who served the gospel and the Church with discretion and self-sacrifice. He also recalled his fruitful work for the Italian Bishops' Conference and productive dialogue, the Pope said, with the world of culture. Pope Leo additionally emphasizing his gratitude to the Lord for the gift of the esteemed man of the Church. Tammy Trujillo tells us federal authorities are continuing to investigate two Southern California residents accused of plotting to attack last Sunday's UFC Freedom 250 event on the White House lawn.
The suspects are 24-year-old Brian Roa of Calamasa and 32-year-old Michael Thomas of Pinion Hills. Both were arrested Saturday and made their initial court appearances on Monday. The FBI searched both men's homes and recovered several guns and large quantities of ammunition. The FBI says the alleged terror plot involved at least 19 people and included plans for explosions and gunfire. An unsealed FBI affidavit says the plan was to set off explosives using drones and shoot guests as they were evacuated. I'm Tammy Trujillo.
And there's a breaking story being reported exclusively by Fox News concerning that terror plot. Abraham Alvarez, Fox News says, identified in federal documents as the alleged ringleader of a plot to carry out that mass casualty event at the White House is an illegal immigrant from Mexico who overstayed his visa. This, according to Homeland Security information first obtained by Fox News Digital. He came to the U.S. apparently as a child and was granted by the Obama administration in 2014 deportation relief through the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, or DACA program, after he failed to leave the country when his visa expired in 2001. 5 co-conspirators were arrested so far this month for allegedly planning with others to use drone equipment with explosives, as you just heard. DHS Acting Assistant Secretary Lauren Biss saying in a statement to Fox News, "This illegal alien from Mexico should never have been allowed in our country. He was the ringleader of a failed terror attack targeting UFC Freedom 250 at the White House." And an oil refinery in Russia has been attacked by Ukrainian drones. Dara Bondarchuk tells us that story.
During one of the largest attacks on the Moscow region so far, 194 drones were downed in the vicinity of the capital by Thursday morning. Local authorities confirmed several drones reached the Moscow oil refinery in southeastern Moscow. Witnesses reported dark smoke rose above the facility.
It's the second time this week a Moscow refinery has been hit by drones. Russia's defense ministry claiming that more than 500 drones were shot down across the country. Russia has been at war with Ukraine since 2022. Ukraine says it's gaining ground at the front lines using medium-range drones. As we mentioned earlier in the weather forecast, millions across the Midwest specifically are in the path of a severe weather system. Major cities across the region, including Chicago, Kansas City, and St. Louis, could all be hit. Cities across Kentucky, Indiana, and Ohio could also be impacted by the same storms. Damaging winds and large hail are expected to be the main threats. Long-track tornadoes are also possible, the weather experts say. Storms expected to intensify through the evening hours. This, as many of these areas have been recently slammed by severe weather conditions. And speaking of which, tornadoes have caused injuries in the Midwest. Several tornadoes reported last night across Iowa and Illinois, including one that caused several injuries. The city of Charleston, Illinois, declared a state of emergency after a confirmed tornado rolled through town at about 6:40 p.m. local time, knocking down trees and power lines and blocking roadways. It is just about 12 minutes past the hour as we wrap up the news this morning. President Trump is set to award the Medal of Honor to a retired reconnaissance Marine. Major James Capers Jr. led his team through a deadly ambush in South Vietnam back in 1967. Injured and bleeding, he was able to get his 9-man team to a helicopter for evacuation after 4 days and nights of fighting. And today, he'll be honored for that heroism, the nation's highest military award, the Medal of Honor. God bless Major James, and God bless all of our men and women who have served or are serving our country in the military. We'll be right back on a Thursday. It's a Thursday. We all know what that means. We're so blessed every week to have Father Mitch Pacwa, our very own Father Mitch, with us for 2 segments. We call it Cultural Connections with Father Mitch Pacwa. First of all, Father, again, congratulations on 50 years as a priest. Thank you for saying yes to Holy Mother Church and the priesthood. So how did the parties, plural, go last week?
Oh, they were wonderful. One of the things we did, I went to our Jesuit get together. So there was a party and celebration with Mass at the parish here in Birmingham at St. Elias, then here at the network last Wednesday with Mass, and then the Wednesday night program. on Friday, we had meetings for my province, but then also Mass and a nice simple dinner to celebrate all of us who are celebrating Jubilees, including one Jesuit who is celebrating 80 years as a
Wow.
Jesuit. That was really cool. And then, as well as others who are celebrating 75 and 60 years in the society, 50 years, and so on. Then on Sunday, I went back down to Chicago and had celebrated Mass and got together with my family down on the south side of Chicago. It's as far south in Chicago as you can go and still be inside the city. It's a neighborhood called Hegwish. It's right in between Mount Trashmore and the steel mills of Indiana. So,
wow.
But now that trash pit is sort of shut down and it's recovering. But at any rate, it was great to be there. The church had been built by my great-great-grandparents and great-grandparents when they arrived from Poland. And so we celebrated there and got a wonderful apostolic blessing from our neighbor, Pope Leo.
Did you really? Awesome.
Yeah, he was just 2 miles away from there. So that was really, really all super. And I appreciate everybody's thanks and their prayers. And we're already starting to talk about the 75th celebration.
Absolutely.
I'll be only 101.
And praise God, I'm looking forward to it, God willing. All right, so let's talk about, I know there's a couple of major stories on which you'd like to comment, starting with the scheduled signing of the memorandum of agreement between Iran and the U.S. What are your thoughts, Father?
Yeah, it's something, there's always going to be the issue of everybody's compliance. And it's not as if all of a sudden everyone involved has fallen madly in love and all is forgiven. No,
right.
There's still a lot of tension.
And they're going to go tiptoeing through the tulips together. Yeah, right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
No, this is there's still great difficulties. Hezbollah continues to attack northern Israel, and Israel continues to attack Lebanon, not only in the south, where Hezbollah's headquarters had been, but now Hezbollah has moved into Beirut and other places. The Israelis know where they are, and that was why the president made his comment. You don't have to blow up a whole apartment building to get a few members of Hezbollah, because there are people who were living in that, away. They were living away from Hezbollah. They weren't part of Hezbollah. That's just their home in these. Beirut has lots and lots of high-rise apartment buildings. It's all over. It's very densely populated there. And if you send a bomb into an apartment building, of course, you're going to either knock down the whole building in some cases, or for the smaller ones, or you're going to also kill people who have nothing to do with Hezbollah. So that really has to be examined. I think the Israelis have made efforts to avoid, killing of innocents. That they make that a policy, but there have been lots of people in Lebanon who are still being killed. That are not part of Hezbollah. And so that's a sticking point. Plus, Lebanon or Iran has said to Lebanon, you have to let us, that is, Lebanon and the Lebanese government has to let Iran negotiate any peace treaties with Israel, ceasefires. And no, you have to. Lebanon is its own country.
Right.
They don't want to fight Israel. They really don't, and they're forced into it because a proxy started by Iran, financed by Iran, and armed by Iran is going in there. And, the president said, and I think this is part of, President Trump's MO. He will typically get a ridiculous statement. Well, we should let Syria control the area and have Syria take it. Syria can't. Their military can't do it. Neither can the Lebanese military take out Hezbollah. That's how much investment has been made by Iran in Hezbollah. Neither government army of Syria or of Lebanon can do it. Plus, they have their own past problems. So that's not a viable option. But I think the president says these kind of crazy ideas to the way I always compare President Trump to Bugs Bunny. He'll say something ridiculous and get Elmer Fudd all upset. And the Elmer Fudd,
including the Elmer Fudds in the media, they go crazy, right?
Yeah, they do. They our media, of course, they play the role of Elmer Fudd so well, and so and the president says this goofy stuff, and he knows it can't happen, but it gets everybody shaken up. And maybe they will do something sensible to help bring this to a better resolution. That I think would be his goal.
There's 2 months that will take place with negotiations. I'm not seeing. I mean, what do you think Iran is going to do? They're certainly not going to all of a sudden comply with all of our requests and be good guys now. That's that's never been their modus operandi. They've been causing trouble in serious situations for 47 years, and some people are saying, what's the point of all this? Because nothing is going to change. But you can't just sit by and do nothing. I mean, that would be my take on it.
Yeah. And, again, we have to keep in mind they are vicious toward their own people. They're still executing people. It's apparently Iranian sources state that it's 42,000 people that were killed by the 42,000 Iranian citizens, unarmed, who were killed by armed Revolutionary Guards. If they're going to do that to their own people,
right?
What do you expect they're going to do to their enemies? The people that they've been saying for a long time that they hate. So this is something to keep in mind. And like I said, they're still executing people from that time in January. Every week, more citizens are executed. So we have to pay close attention to that. And part of this, has to come into the way we plan to keep an eye on what they're doing.
Yep. Let's take a quick break. More with Father Mitch Pacwa, taking a look at the violence in our nation as well, with a close-up look at the terror plot that was scheduled for this past weekend on the White House lawn. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Thanks for tuning in to EWTN's Catholic Connection. On a Thursday morning, we appreciate your listenership and also appreciate the priesthood and the many gifts of our regular weekly guest here on Cultural Connections on a Thursday, our very own Father Mitch Pacwa. Okay, this story pertaining to this terror plot, Father, is just, it gets worse and worse in terms of what they were trying to do on Sunday. And the violence and the language, I'm not talking either about expletives, I'm talking about the violence in their language in terms of what they were saying they wanted to do to people, fellow Americans gathered to celebrate the US of A. What are your thoughts on that, Father? I know you wanted to discuss that from a Catholic perspective.
Yeah, this is a great example of people who are, the end justifies the means. That it doesn't matter to them what you might want to do. That no matter how evil this is, they don't care. They were looking to kill people that were just attending, not even people who were the people who were leaders, yes, but they also wanted to kill off anybody who was just attending. They had a multiple attack. This is a standard disregard for human life, a general disregard for human respect. This is part of what they do, and that is crucial. To understand that they have this total disregard, and we are trying to deal with such circumstances. People have said throughout this whole experience of terrorism that when they do these things, we have to catch them every time. They have to get away with it only once. This is a very dangerous situation where people who don't believe in basic morals, people who deny the reality of basic morality, and that there's no moral principle, it's whatever I choose, whatever I feel. This is the moral stance that we take. And, what do you do with that?
Right.
How do you deal with people who don't say, no, women and children should be protected? What do you do with people who think that it's okay to do damage to anyone? This is an impossible situation. Yeah. And, they are willing to do, and they have, my sense, they remind me of the kids I used to work with in the gangs. They have delusions of grandeur. They think that they are able to, do anything they wish, and this is something that is part of their worldview, and it's all okay. Anything they want to do is just fine. And that's not true. But they don't know that. They don't believe it. They don't accept that reality.
Right, and they're being radicalized. You see so many of these people, and this one man from Ohio is only 19 years old.
Yeah, I know. He looks older. People who have been looking at him think that he is actually considerably older than that, but apparently not. And his mother
19.
Is the one who was able to get there and say to him, we are, my son is doing this odd behavior. We have to get this stopped. And so that's what's going on. Thanks be to God, she did that. She was heroic in doing that. That's her son. And
right.
Imagine, that your son is getting you to, is threatening other people's lives, and you go ahead and turn him in. That is a
very brave, but also I think thinking about her son's well-being in the sense that, okay, if they can stop him from doing this, and Obviously, he's probably, because these are going to be federal charges, I bet he's going, I don't know if the death penalty will take place here. Of course, nobody was killed yet.
Nobody was killed, so this is most likely going to be multiple life
sentences. But hopefully, God willing, while he's in prison, she can meet with him, she can talk to him, maybe bring in, I don't know what religion he is, if any, but to save his soul. Because if he's sitting in prison, at least this is one of the reasons why we're against the death penalty, because we realize that every person has the opportunity. It doesn't mean they walk free, but every person has the opportunity to turn their lives around and hopefully save their soul. But this is extremely frightening. I think what is really frightening, and I'm going to talk about this with Dr. Ray Guarendi up next from a psychological perspective, is we kind of think about things and you think, how did they think they were going to get away with it? And what is the reasoning? They were saying they wanted to go after elites and billionaires. They hate the billionaires. Well, okay, maybe you're
Jews.
And Jews, right. Maybe you don't like these people, or maybe you're envious of some sort, but okay. But the billionaires are employing a lot of people with their companies. Not saying that they're not, living very well, but if they earned it, okay. But they're employing a lot of people, and they have a positive impact in many ways on society as well.
And that means nothing to them. That's one of the things we have to remember. That the good that somebody else does not feature into their moral concern. It doesn't. They look upon morality as something that is, bourgeois. And it's something I've said before. When we talk about people who want socialism, what they propose is that all sorts of people will get good things shared amongst everybody else. That's what
how's
makes
that
it
work
sound
for us
so attractive
around the world. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But on the other side of that, what they don't pay attention to is that you have to put these individuals, this is what they see. They want to destroy what exists and rebuild the world.
Yes, that's what they said. They want to burn everything down and rebuild the world.
And then they will be in charge of the distribution. Now, notice how they are so willing to kill the people they disagree with. This explains why communists killed the people they disagreed with. Right. The National Socialists, also known as the Nazis, killed those that they disagreed with. That's what these socialists will do as well. It is inherent in socialism.
Father, great discussion, great points as always. Our very own Father Mitch Pacwa joins us for 2 segments every Thursday on Cultural Connections. Dr. Ray Guarendi up next. .38 past the hour. Someone also known and loved by our listeners. I'm just saying that so he feels good about himself again. Actually, they do. He's a great talk show host. He's a great friend. He is a wonderful psychologist, counselor, author, speaker. I always like to bring him on to get his perspective on stories, because we need to look at everything, as my dear late friend Al Crusta used to say, through the lens of Scripture and the teachings of the Catholic Church. And it's so important. Okay, what are we supposed to do? How do we respond and get a better understanding of what's happening in our world so we can go out there and make a difference? Okay, understand you just celebrated a birthday, my friend. So, Tanto Gore, Bon Capiano, how are you?
I don't appreciate what you just did.
What did I do? Warm me up?
You bring on Father Mitch and then to me, and that's kind of like going from Jeopardy down to Wheel of Fortune in 5 minutes.
Get over it. We're live on the air, and I got a lot of questions, okay?
How am I going to sound smart after Father Mitch?
Well, you never sound smart anyway. Why start now? I mean, what difference does it make? Okay, I'm just kidding. If you weren't smart, I wouldn't be bringing you on the program. Okay, I thought of you with this story with this mom, because we're always talking a lot. I know you talk a lot about this on your show and in your books, parental responsibility and, being tough when you need to be tough. God bless this mother in Ohio who thought that there was some really fishy stuff going on with her son, and she called police. He ended up being involved in this huge plot, the terror plot. They're planning on, God forbid, killing a lot of people on Sunday on the White House lawn. Let's talk about this in terms of this responsibility, what this says about parenthood. What do you think?
The worst kids I have ever seen as a psychologist come from parents who say, it's not my kid's fault, it's the world's fault. That breeds the worst people I've seen. My wife and I watch these crime shows because I like how they solve it, how they use forensics, how they use logic and reason. Inevitably, the evidence against an individual, a son or a daughter, can be absolutely overwhelming. But the parents say, he's innocent. He would never do anything like that. That's not my son. The whole system is wrong. So the fact that this mom said, here's what my kid is planning, surprises me, T. It surprises me a lot, but it gives me a little bit of faith that there are still people left who would say, I have to do what is right, even if that affects the person closest to me. Shocked me, actually, to tell you the truth.
Yeah,
I expected more commonly for her to say something like, well, I don't think he really meant it, or it was misunderstood, or at the most, I would have expected her not to say anything.
Do you think this is sending, and I think it is, a positive message? I mean, it gave me a lot of hope as well to other parents out there if they see something. And they're always saying that you need to be very vigilant. You had the Ohio governor, your governor, saying this the other day because one of the suspects of whom we're speaking is the one whose mother turned him in. Do you think this is sending a positive signal to other parents out there?
I saw an article just recently. Supposedly, the administration in Chicago, deep blue Chicago, has said they want to start holding parents accountable for these kids who run rampant in these teen mobs, which shocks me, to tell you the truth. The philosopher has always said there are only two things that will make people behave. The first is an inner moral system. The second is the point of a gun. And I think that's a little bit of what's happening here as this is getting crazier and crazier in our society's dislike of rules, that the hammer is coming down. I think it's a little bit of what you're seeing. It's a desperation.
Talking with Dr. Ray Guarendi, of course, author, speaker, psychologist, and much loved and well-known talk show host here on EWTN. Okay, so let's talk about, I found this to be very interesting, and the reporter in me started to ask a lot of questions. The result of the Carmelo Anthony case, where the young teen in Texas was stabbed to death, and of course he was found guilty. Carmelo Anthony found guilty. He's appealing now, which is his right. He can do that, obviously. But some of the reports that came out, I was really troubled because they kept saying, well, he had an all-white jury, and well, his attorney was white. And I'm saying, well, you have an opportunity as a defense and the prosecution when you have the questioning of the jury, and I've covered countless trials, you can toss out jurors, and you can make your case known at that point. And, okay, maybe the family couldn't afford an attorney, and so the prosecutor was, or the defense attorney was appointed for them. But at the same time, there seemed to, or what about applying for a change of venue? Those questions didn't come up, and it all came down again to race. It was very unfair. It was a racial thing. It was just horrible what people were saying back and forth. What were your thoughts about that case?
The Bible talks about us being sheep. Sheep are basically simple animals. They simply move in the direction of the flock. I think we're very sheep-like in the sense that the media can tell us how to think. And the majority of people will think as the media tells them how to think. If the media fans the flames that everything is racism, everything is oppressive and unfair, then there's going to be a fair amount of people who are just going to swallow that. They're going to take it in. And it isn't just the media anymore, T. It's social media, it's the internet, it's all of the podcasts.
Instagram, TikTok, all this stuff.
It's a relentless wave. And one thing I've learned as a psychologist is how easily influenced we are. And we can be convinced to believe anything. And it's effort to think critically. And if you don't put the effort in, I'll give you a small example. Remember the O.J. trial in 1994?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Well, the evidence was overwhelming that O.J. did it. It was overwhelming. But yet, the country was split along black-white lines, enormously split. There was a celebration when he was acquitted among certain segments. And that reveals how easily we just simply swallow what we are told. And I think Christians have to really put the effort in to think more critically along the lines of the way our faith would tell us to think. Now, interestingly enough, Carmelo Anthony's parents pretty much did what I would expect parents to do when their kid has been accused of something, because I see it over and over and over and over again on these crime and court shows. It's amazing. It's relentless how the parents will say, "Not my kid."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the evidence was pretty overwhelming. It was also moving to see the father of the victim say that he forgave Carmelo Anthony, even though he's still struggling with it. I mean, my goodness, his son was killed. But I thought that was quite powerful as well. He said, "I have to forgive. I'm a Christian. I have to forgive."
Well, it's interesting, isn't it, that the folks that surrounded Carmelo Anthony, I don't think any of them are willing to forgive anybody at all. They got mistreated, they got oppressed, and they will have no intent to forgive. But yet here's the dad whose son was actually murdered saying, "I forgive." Right. It comes down to this, T, and I heard you and Father Mitch talking about this. You give God the boot, and you're going to create your own moral system. Mm-hmm. Our culture is creating its own moral system. The new sins are group sins. They are, quote-unquote, racial. They are not taking care of the environment. They are smoking, spanking, having more than 1.86 children. The old sins, adultery, fornication, the things that you do individually, lie, cheat, and steal, are less and less sins because the new sins are the group sins.
It's the psychology for you must be so fascinating. And talking about getting back to the White House plot. If you think about the 19-year-old, and he's talking to his mom, she's asking him questions. She's noticing some very, very strange things. He spends $3,000 apparently, it was his graduation money, on all kinds of weapons and ammo. He's doing all these weird things online, and he kind of tells her what he's thinking of, not directly, not the whole plan, obviously. And you wonder, okay, do you think your mother is going to support you in that? And the reason that they wanted to do this is because they hate billionaires, they hate elites. And so, okay, but you're fighting against, I guess we're trying to think about it from a common sense perspective, which we should never apply, correct?
That's right. That's one thing I've learned. There's major themes in psychology. One thing I've learned is when I expect someone who is showing signs of pathology to think rationally and reasonably, I'm going to be disappointed. That's not going to happen. People say, "Well, how can they think that?" I go, "Because they did."
Right.
But that's not logical. People don't live by logic. They live by self-interest and emotions predominantly.
Yeah. Right.
So it doesn't shock me. The fact that he told his mother that, you know what that tells me? I think he suspected, for whatever the reason, that his mother would not in any way turn him in.
That makes sense. Yeah. I'm glad you brought up the media, because I wanted to talk to you about that in relationship, getting back to the Carmelo Anthony case. It drove me nuts when I'm reading these stories. And I'm reading out loud, and I often have these Italian moments when I'm reading stories, and I drive Dominic nuts. But
you don't cuss in Italian, do you?
No. I try not to cuss. That's not a good thing to do. But I'm looking at this and I'm saying, ask the question. Okay, you had an opportunity to question the jury. That's what it's for, the potential jurors. You have an opportunity to apply for a change of venue. This is what drives me crazy. The media don't, in the stories, when they don't ask those questions or pose those questions or put that information in there, they're making you assume, oh, this is so, the sin of omission in journalism is just as bad as literal bias. But if you don't put the facts in there about the process of what happens when you are heading for a trial, then everybody's going to think, well, it's very unfair. They had an all-white jury. Oh, it's very unfair. He had a white attorney. But they have a process that they go through in which both sides are involved.
Obviously, if they'd asked a little further, they would have found out that his lawyer had peremptory challenges. He could have said, I don't want this person, I don't want that person. He could have done much more in the selection of that jury.
Exactly.
And what he did is he probably thought this is a favorable jury. Lawyers will tell you the case is won or lost in jury selection.
Right, exactly.
And so he must have thought that this is a jury that's going to give us the best chance of some type of plea deal, downward charge, whatever.
But the media need to explain that. It's who, what, where, and why, and how. I'm not talking about a whole dissertation about the legalese of a trial. It's very simple. You have a few lines in there about what happened. And then maybe you ask the people who are saying that this is unfair, well, did you ever talk to the family or the family's attorney about why they chose this jury or what, blah, blah? Nobody's asking those questions or putting those facts in there, and it gives you a completely different impression at the end of the day. And that's a big, big problem with the media today.
To be fair and objective is a moral position. If you don't have the moral position, then being fair and objective is not your main goal. Your main goal is to create a narrative.
Exactly.
And that's what's happening.
And that's how you do it, because you eliminate information, and that helps build up that narrative of being unfair and racist and imbalanced and the whole bit. One last question. We only have about 60 seconds left. I want to have you back on this, but yet another country banning social media. This happened in the UK on Monday. It's going to take place in a few months. It's going to take effect. 16 kids, 16 and under. What do you think?
I love it. Technology leaps ahead of people's anticipation of its consequences. And it usually takes 10, 15 years for us to go, ooh, maybe we better put some guardrails on this new technology.
Amen, brother. All right, great stuff. And we will have you back on to talk about these bans. Several countries now, Ray. We've got a number of them, including England and I believe India, as well as the continent of Australia. We'll be right back. Let you know what's coming up in hour number 2 on EW10 Radio Expo. So glad I have a radio show. Otherwise, I think I'd explode. I was talking to my wonderful producer, Richard, during the break, and it just drives me nuts. And next week, I'm presenting to the wonderful EWTN Summer Academy, and I'm doing a whole 90-minute talk. I'm presenting on radio and TV, but they want me to cover a number of things, not only your on-air performance and your presentation, but ethics and how do you put a story together. And this is one of the things with which we discussed with Dr. Ray Guarendi that just frustrates the heck out of me. All it would have taken is one paragraph, not even a couple of lines about the process leading up to a trial, when they have all these statements about the white jury, the white attorney, this, that, balance, imbalance. Explain it. There is an opportunity that's given, as Ray said and as we just said. So it's just one of my little pet peeves. Actually, it's not a little one, it's a big one. But anyway, I digress. Take a deep breath. Coming up in the second hour of Catholic Connection, for 2 cents, have you heard this audio of this video, or have you seen this video? This is an evangelical psychiatrist. His name is Dr. Daniel Amen, and he has Amen Clinics. I love that his name fits his ministry and his work. And he talks often about the healing power of prayer, and specifically, he put out a video about the Lord's Prayer and how the words that we're saying affect us, not just emotionally, but what it does to our brain in terms of the neuroscience. It's fascinating, and it just lends itself to understand the greatness and the glory of God. When our Lord, as it says in the gospel of today, gave us that prayer, he knew what he was doing for more reasons than one, because he's God and we're not. And then we're going to talk about healing the culture. Boy, what a great topic for today after the discussions we've had. Camille Pauley, co-founder of Healing the Culture, and how they're trying to really help form a culture of life. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Catholic Connection with Teresa Tomeo, keeping you connected to your faith and your world. Teresa tackles the issues of faith and culture, the pro-life message, and media awareness. And now, here's Teresa Tomeo.
And we continue our Thursday programming on this June 18th, 2026. Great to be with you here in the second hour of Catholic Connection. CC with TT on a Thursday. Hope you are doing well. We have so much to talk about. In 2 cents, we are going to break open the gospel message for today from our Lord, yea, Jesus, talking about how do we pray? Lord, teach us how to pray. And what does he do? He gives us the Our Father. So we're going to talk about the healing power of the Lord's Prayer from two perspectives. We have a really cool video. Obviously, it's radio, so it's theater of the mind. You'll hear the audio of Dr. Daniel Amen. I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name, or Amen. But he has a number of clinics called the Amen Clinics, which is really cool, actually. He's an evangelical brother in the Lord. He's a physician. He's a psychiatrist, double board certified, by the way, an award-winning researcher, and also a best-selling author. And he did this video. Vanessa Denhagarmo sent it to me a few weeks ago, and I just loved it. It's very simple, but he talks about what happens in the brain when you're saying the words of the Our Father. And then we'll also look at the scriptural significance of this and break the prayer down you, in addition to sharing the gospel with you. So that is our 2 cents segment for a Thursday, T's 2 cents. And then coming up at the bottom of the hour for 2 segments this morning as we wrap up a Thursday morning edition, ties in very nicely with the first hour of the program. We have Camille Pauley, who's co-founder of Healing the Culture. This is a beautiful online ministry. They have all kinds of programs and classes, and the whole idea is to start with the individual person in helping them understand the dignity of life. And we're going to be talking about how they're expanding their digital access and their programs as part of their mission to form people committed again to protecting the dignity of every human life. And certainly that's something we need now more than ever, especially when you think about what we've been discussing so far today. We appreciate your listenership. Let's let you know what's happening weather-wise. We've got some issues out there with the weather. We have an outbreak of severe thunderstorms expected across portions of Illinois and Indiana this evening, intense tornadoes and paths of damaging gusts and hail, and they're saying the hail could be as large as 2 inches in diameter. Now, when you think about 2 inches, it doesn't seem like it's that large, but imagine that coming down, hitting your car, hitting you as you're walking, or hitting buildings, can do a lot of damage. They're also saying Tropical Storm Arthur will continue to produce strong winds across coastal upper Texas and Louisiana this evening, and also we can expect some life-threatening flooding across southern Louisiana and Mississippi. So that's a forecast for hour number 2 and also the rundown for hour number 2. It is 2 minutes past the hour. We do need to get started, though, with the news here on EWTN Radio Extra. It's 3 minutes past the hour. President Trump praising the U.S. agreements with Iran. Speaking at the G7 summit in France, he said the deal is monumental.
We reached an agreement with Iran that achieves everything we set out to accomplish, everything and much more. Ending the current conflict, reopening the Strait of Hormuz.
He added global leaders are thrilled with the measure. A 14-point memorandum of understanding between the U.S. and Iran is set to be signed soon. The agreement calling for negotiations to continue for 60 days to reach a final agreement to end the war. Democrats and even some Republicans are expressing, meanwhile, skepticism about the deal. Most of the concern from Republicans is surrounding reports that claim the U.S. will send funds to Iran. But Vice President J.D. Vance says that's not happening.
Not a single cent of American money under any circumstance, no matter what the Iranians do, goes to Iran.
Vance saying the agreement does allow the country to reach peaceful benchmarks, which would then allow other countries in the region to invest in Iranian infrastructure. Vance adding the agreement does state that Iran must never develop or buy a nuclear weapon. His boss, the president, of course, insisting it's a very good deal, as we just heard, that will open the Strait of Hormuz and stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon, as further negotiations are set after the official signing tomorrow. Devin Watkins, meanwhile, with Vatican News, is reporting the Holy Father, Pope Leo, expressing his hopes for peace in the Middle East as the U.S. and Iran prepare to sign that agreement. He's also, though, appealing for an end to the war in Ukraine.
As he held his weekly general audience on Wednesday, Pope Leo XIV appealed for Iran and the United States to continue along the path of dialogue and cooperation. The two countries are expected to sign a memorandum of understanding on Friday after nearly 4 months of war. The Pope called the agreement an encouraging result of patient work of dialogue and negotiation. He thanked the third-party countries that have worked to facilitate peace negotiations.
Auspico che questo accordo.
I hope, he said, that this agreement may help strengthen mutual trust, security, and stability in the Middle East, promoting paths of dialogue and cooperation among peoples. The United States and Israel launched airstrikes on Iran on February 28th, targeting the country's nuclear and ballistic missile programs and killing its supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Iran responded with counterstrikes against Israel and U.S. bases and allies in the Gulf region. It also disrupted shipping through the Strait of Hormuz, which led to a spike in crude oil and petrol prices across the globe. At the audience, Pope Leo also lamented the growing number of deaths in Ukraine. Russia has recently intensified its attacks on the country, especially on Ukrainian cities and civilian sites.
Tante vittime innocenti, soccorritori uccisi.
There are many innocent victims, rescuers killed, churches and places of cultural heritage devastated by flames, he said. The Pope added he is close to all those who mourn their loved ones, to the wounded, and to those who, amid violence, continue courageously to serve life. Pope Leo XIV invited everyone to pray for an end to the war in Ukraine.
Invito tutti a pregare.
I invite everyone to pray that this war may end, he said. Let us ask the Lord to open paths of dialogue, to extinguish hatred, and to make a just and lasting peace possible. I'm Devin Watkins.
And in a telegram release yesterday, the Holy Father expressing his closeness and condolences upon learning of the passing of Cardinal Camille Pauley, Vicar General Emeritus of the Diocese of Rome and former head of the Italian Bishops' Conference. He passed away earlier this week at the age of 95. The Pope remembering him as an experienced and wise brother characterized by deep faith, keen intelligence, and a far-sighted vision, a man who served the gospel in the Church with discretion and self-sacrifice. He also recalled his fruitful work with the Italian Bishops' Conference and productive dialogue with the world of culture. Pope Leo additionally emphasizing his gratitude to the Lord for the gift of the esteemed man of the Holy Catholic Church. Tammy Trujillo reports federal authorities are continuing to investigate 2 Southern California residents accused of plotting to attack last Sunday's UFC Freedom 250 event on the White House lawn.
The suspects are 24-year-old Brian Roa of Calamasa and 32-year-old Michael Thomas of Piñon Hills. Both were arrested Saturday and made their initial court appearances on Monday. The FBI searched both men's homes and recovered several guns and large quantities of ammunition. The FBI says the alleged terror plot involved at least 19 people and included plans for explosions and gunfire. An unsealed FBI affidavit says the plan was to set off explosives using drones and shoot guests as they were evacuated. I'm Tammy Trujillo.
Fox News is reporting this morning that Abraham Alvarez, identified in federal court documents as the alleged ringleader of a plot to carry out the mass casualty event at the UFC White House event on June 14th, is an illegal immigrant from Mexico who overstayed his visa. This according to the Homeland Security information first obtained by Fox News Digital. Alvarez coming to the U.S. as a child and was granted by the Obama administration back in 2014 deportation relief through DACA, or the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program. This after he failed to leave the country when his visa expired in 2001. The DHS Assistant Secretary Lauren Biss said in a statement to Fox News, "This illegal alien from Mexico should never have been allowed in our country. He was the ringleader of a failed terror attack targeting USC Freedom 250 at the White House." An oil refinery in Russia has been attacked by Ukrainian drones, as Daria Bondarchuk reports.
During one of the largest attacks on the Moscow region so far, 194 drones were downed in the vicinity of the capital by Thursday morning. Local authorities confirmed several drones reached the Moscow oil refinery in southeastern Moscow. Witnesses reported dark smoke rose above the facility.
It's the second time this week a Moscow refinery has been hit by drones. Russia's defense ministry claims that more than 500 drones were shot down across the country. Russia has been at war with Ukraine since 2022. Ukraine says it's gaining ground at the front lines using medium-range drones. And millions across the Midwest, as we mentioned in the weather forecast, are in the path of a severe weather system. Major cities across the region, including the Midwest, such as Chicago and also Kansas City and St. Louis, could all be hit. Cities also across Kentucky, Indiana, and Ohio could also be impacted. Damaging winds and large hail are expected to be the main threats, and long-track tornadoes are also possible. Storms are expected to intensify through the evening hours tonight, and this comes as many of these areas have already been hit by severe weather conditions. Tornadoes are causing injuries in the Midwest. Speaking of the problems, several tornadoes reported last night across Iowa and Illinois, including one that caused several injuries. The city of Charleston, Illinois, declaring a state of emergency after a confirmed tornado rolled through town about 6:40 p.m. local time, knocking down trees and power lines and blocking roadways. The extent of the damage there is still unclear. And to the south in Effingham County, emergency officials say a tornado ripped through homes and farms for over 10 miles, causing severe injuries. None of them was life-threatening. Thousands in the region have been left without power. Sarah Lee Kessler tells us about the Gilgo Beach serial killer. He was given a chance to address a court at his sentencing in New York yesterday, and he did.
It took Rex Heuermann just 4 seconds.
There are no words like you say. I'm responsible for what was said in this room, Steph.
The 62-year-old Manhattan architect and Massapequa Park resident was sentenced to life in prison, no parole possible. Heuermann had admitted murdering 8 women on Long Island over a 17-year period. Judge Timothy Massey asked Heuermann if he was sorry, and he said yes. Massey responded with,
"You're a disgusting and despicable small man, and you're a coward. Get him out of here."
I'm Sarah Lee Kessler.
Attorneys for alleged United Healthcare CEO shooter Luigi Mangione are planning to formally declare a psychiatric defense, State Supreme Court Judge Gregory Caro ordering Mangione's attorneys to immediately present their client's psychiatric records to prosecutors. The claim to form some sort of insanity comes as Mangione's legal term argues he was experiencing an extreme emotional disturbance when he allegedly shot and killed United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson in Midtown Manhattan back in 2024. Mangione has pleaded not guilty in his state and federal trials. And Mark Mayfield has the latest on the case of Nancy Guthrie. There's still no signs of her following a search south of the Arizona border.
Volunteers and search groups made another effort yesterday to find the missing mother of Today Show host Savannah Guthrie, but didn't find any evidence of her whereabouts. Volunteers conducted several searches in Nogales after receiving an anonymous tip that her remains were buried in that area of Mexico. The 84-year-old was reported missing from her Tucson area home at the beginning of February, and authorities continue to investigate her disappearance. In Phoenix, I'm Mark Mayfield.
And President Trump is set to award the Medal of Honor to a retired reconnaissance Marine. Major James Capers Jr. leading his team through a deadly ambush in South Vietnam back in 1967. He was injured and bleeding, but somehow managed to get his 9-man team to a helicopter for evacuation after 4 days and nights of fighting. And today he will be honored for that heroism with the nation's highest military award, the Medal of Honor. It is a Thursday morning. It is June 18th, 2026. Great to be with you on a Thursday morning edition of Catholic Connection, hour number 2 on EWTN's Radio Extra. Taking a deep dive into the beautiful words of our Lord in the Gospel today on how we should pray. Stay tuned. Minutes past the hour. Welcome back, Catholic Connection. Time for T's 2 cents. The Gospel for today reminds us how to pray from our Lord. Let me share it with you if you haven't done your readings yet. From the Gospel, St. Matthew chapter 6, verses 7 through 15. Jesus said to his disciples, "In praying, do not babble like the pagans who think that they will be heard because of their many words. Do not be like them. Your Father knows what you need before you ask him. And this is how you are to pray. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. If you forgive others their transgressions, your heavenly Father will forgive you. But if you do not forgive others, neither will your Father forgive your transgressions." That is the Gospel for today, which is a Thursday, June 18th, 2026. Again, Matthew chapter 6, verses 7 through 15. And I really like this idea of taking a closer look at the Lord's Prayer. And if you think about it, we're going to play in a few minutes the audio version of a video that was put out by an evangelical psychiatrist. He's a best-selling author, and he breaks down, he's a medical doctor, obviously, he's a psychiatrist, but he's a double certified psychiatrist, has an amazing resume. But anyway, he's breaking this down from a more, I would say, physical perspective in terms of the impact the words, when we say them with true meaning, what they can do to our stress level, to our emotions, to everything that's tied up. And when you just stop and analyze that from, let's say, God's perspective, not that we're trying to be God because he's God and we're not, but you think about the beauty of that. The words have such meaning, but there's also a physical, if we open up our minds and hearts, a physical transformation that can take place. Now, we know there's countless studies that talk about the benefits of prayer, the benefits of slowing down, the benefits of being alone with God. I mean, there's tons of research on that. And so this is a reminder of how important it is, but also in terms of the physical impact this has on us. But let's start with the spiritual, okay? So Focus, a fellowship of Catholic University students, I love that organization. They had a very, very nice summary on this, but there's a number of them. And it really, what it does, they're all pretty much the same in terms of breaking open the Lord's Prayer. The Lord's Prayer is a profound guide for a Catholic prayer life, emphasizing the importance of prayer life in the life of a believer. It reflects on the importance of prayer, on Christian faith, and a way to connect with God. The prayer is broken down into 6 parts, each with a specific focus. Hallowed be thy name. Begin with the praise and honor of God. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. A desire for God's reign in the world. Thy will be done, which is huge. Acceptance of God's will even when it's challenging. Give us this day our daily bread. Requests for material sustenance and spiritual nourishment. You think about the Israelites and the manna in the desert, right? Forgive us our trespasses. A plea for forgiveness and the ability to forgive others. Lead us not into temptation. Protection from sin and reliance on God's guidance. As Focus says, these parts are not just words to recite, but are a guide to a deeper prayer life, prioritizing our relationship with God and spiritual needs over our material desires. The prayer is a way to express our desires before God and to seek his guidance in our daily lives. And how many times when we say this at Mass, and we all do it, right? We just mumble the words kind of, maybe we're doing it in a rote way, and it's not to say that, we're evil or anything. It's just that it's sometimes a habit. And I think if we stop and break down these prayers, we understand what God gives us in the words he's teaching us. Take it day by day is what he's saying here. Recognize who I am. I am God. You are not. Of course, he's not saying it that way. I am. But he's got the whole world in his hands. As Father John Mercado, my dear friend, always says, God's not worried. He's got this. So you begin with the praising and honor and the recognition of who God is. And you desire God's reign in the world, on earth and in heaven, even when we don't understand it. And we ask for what we need to get through the day. Not 10 days from now, not a month from now, not 3 years from now. Lord, help me in this day. Where other scriptures talk about don't worry about tomorrow because tomorrow, has enough, right? Troubles of its own. And the whole idea of forgiveness. We've been talking about this a lot too in the news and in our discussions on the show in the last couple of weeks. Because we have to forgive. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't want and push for justice in a particular situation, but we have to forgive. And then protection from sin and reliance on God's guidance and providence. So the spiritual aspect of this is huge, but so is the physical impact. Take a listen to this psychiatrist, someone who studies neuroscience, a wonderful evangelical brother in the Lord, a best-selling author who's trying to help us explain that when God gives us direction in prayer, it has impact in more ways than one. Take a listen.
That most people pray it without realizing it's also a blueprint for a healthier, more resilient brain. Our Father who art in heaven activates the attachment system, the medial prefrontal cortex and anterior cingulate, shifting your brain from threat to safety. Hallowed be your name gets us outside of ourselves and quiets the default mode network, reducing rumination and self-criticism. Your kingdom come lights up the dopamine-driven hope network, helping your brain imagine a better future. Your will be done calms the amygdala and reduces stress by releasing the burden of control. Give us today our daily bread, anchors attention in the present, reducing catastrophic future thinking in your amygdala. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us, activates the empathy network, temporal parietal junction, medial prefrontal cortex, and decreases cortisol by releasing resentment. Lead us not into temptation, strengthens the prefrontal inhibitory circuits that help you resist triggers before they hit, and deliver us from evil, boosts courage by activating and reminding your brain you are not alone. The Lord's Prayer isn't just spiritual. It's a neurological transformation, one intentional line at a time. And I've been meditating on the Lord.
Isn't that amazing? The physical impact when we really breathe in and apply these words to our life. And I found something else. The great St. Thomas Aquinas says, prayer begins with truth entering the mind. Before we can choose and desire what is good, we must first recognize what is truly good in the eyes of God. And again, recognizing in the beginning of that prayer who God is and who we are not. He says the first three petitions of the Lord's Prayer focus on God's glory and the highest good rather than our own needs, which mean we get everything in the proper perspective. Okay, and I love the point the doctor said about when we talk about give us this day our daily bread. It helps us not only offer it up to God and put it at the foot of the cross, as my mother used to always say, to concentrate on the day before us, as opposed to getting all worried about what's going to happen tomorrow or the next day or the next day. God has given us the blueprint, especially in the Our Father, the Lord's Prayer. Thank you, Jesus. We'll be right back. Greatly appreciate your listenership here at EWTN Catholic Radio. Check out all of our great material at EWTN.com. Great to have Camille Pauley back with us. She's a co-founder of Hearing the Culture. So many things to discuss, but first, Camille, thanks for joining us and congrats on your growing efforts to help people understand the dignity of the human person and to help people understand how to explain the beauty of life in particular. So let's talk first of all, for folks who aren't familiar, I know many are, but just in case there's someone not familiar with Healing the Culture, tell us about the organization and why and how you founded it, or co-founder. You're the co-founder. So how did that begin?
Sure. Good morning, Teresa. It's good to talk to you again.
Good morning.
So Healing the Culture is the brainchild of Father Robert Spitzer, and he really wanted something that helps people understand.
I know him.
But you know him? That's so weird. I know him too. Yeah, he's a great
Amazing.
guy.
Yeah.
He happens to be my boss, and he, back in 1993 or 92, he really wanted to create something where people understood why we're pro-life, not just that we're pro-life, not just what we believe, but why. And so he created this as a philosophical program to help people better understand what is real happiness and what is real freedom and what is a right and what does it mean and what responsibilities does that call forth from you. And if you don't follow those principles of responsibility, how it makes your life much more miserable, and you're really living beneath yourself and aiming at things that are not worthy of you. And so it grew into this whole mission, this whole organization, and now a whole movement among many other organizations we partner with to teach people a philosophy of human life that they've never learned, that they don't learn in school anymore and should. So that's what we do.
And you're expanding, and I wanted to bring you on today to talk about that. Let's talk about how you're expanding, where, and first of all, how people can get information.
Sure. So our website is healingtheculture.org, and we've just launched a brand new website. It's way more useful, more user-friendly than it has been before. And the reason why we launched a new website was because most of our materials now are video-oriented and social media-oriented. And so we've got short snippets, we've got longer snippets, we've got deep dives, we've got simple explanations of various issues. And so we have a new platform now that makes it really user-friendly for people to get on and use the curriculum, the content that we have in a personal setting, with your kids, in a classroom, as research for a paper you're doing, or showing in a religious education program, in a youth group, sharing with your friends. So it's a new program that I think gives people the benefit of being able to decide if I've got 90 seconds to listen to the answer to a question I have, or if I want a deeper dive. So that's at healingtheculture.org. And our growth has been phenomenal because of the use of social media. Social media has so many tools now. There's a lot of discussion about AI, and I love the Pope's new encyclical on that.
Yep.
There's been some great articles in First Things, too, about the good use of AI and the very worrisome uses of AI. We put some of those technologies to use in good ways to really target identifying where is our audience. We can do deep dives into where are the people we're trying to reach with certain pro-life messages. Where are they right now? And we could track them and find out, where are they, when, at what times of day, what are they paying attention to, and what's stopping their scroll. And then we can mimic that, the look and feel, get people to stop the scroll and then have them engage in our videos. And we've seen a 5,000% increase in the number of people who are watching our videos, and a similar increase, about 3,000% increase in the people who are engaging in our content. For better or for worse, you get the meanies, and then you get the people who really are asking questions authentically because they want to know what you think, and they really care about what they believe. So it's these tools have been very helpful to us, and people who use social media probably see a lot more of us.
Even if they are going on there maybe to criticize, they can't help ignore the fact, and I know you and Father talk about this, I'm sure, because they're still on the website, and who knows what they're going to see that could possibly plant a seed, right?
Yes, we have a lot of internal conversations about that. We hired a person whose whole job is to engage online with the people who make comments. And she's actually had some success in taking some of the cruelest statements, people who make these horrendous statements, and kind of hooking them into a conversation where they're actually asking questions, and then she'll answer it, and then they respond. So it's not just them throwing garbage at us, but you'll get some of these people who you can engage in a dialogue that gets them thinking, and that's what you want. You want them seeing that this is a rational organization, this is a rational movement, and not just that, it's empathetic, and not just that, it's just, and they see all this wrapped into a conversation with a real human being, and it's just a great way to reach Gen Z and younger, what is it, Gen Alpha kids coming up now. But it's just really, really great way to reach them and get them engaged. And then you pull them in to the organizational content, and then they can explore a lot more of what we do and who we are.
Absolutely. We're talking with Camille Pauley, the co-founder of Healing the Culture, the website. It's fantastic, healingtheculture.org. Do you find that your Truth in 90 Seconds, that section, Camille, is among the most popular on the website? Because 90 seconds, to be able to do that is phenomenal. Yeah, we've got several million views just on that series. And it's like the subject, like the title mentions, we teach pro-life issues in 90-second little segments. I think we have 30 or 32 of them up now. We do one every month. We've got everything from life of the mother, rape and incest, it's my body, it's my choice, let's agree to disagree, all these different issues people bring up. What about disabilities? We even kind of touch on the issue of vaccines.
just on the abortion aspect of vaccines. So, we get into all these really hot-button issues, and the popularity of 90 seconds is that obviously people don't want to spend, a lot of people who are in our target don't want to spend half an hour trying to understand what you think about a certain issue, but they will give you 90 seconds.
Right.
And then what we find is they'll watch one and they'll go, well, that's kind of interesting, and then they'll watch another, and then they'll watch another, and then before you know it, they're commenting on our YouTube channel. And so it's more like a hook. There's only so much you can do in 90 seconds, right? I'm not going to give you the whole pro-life philosophy in 90 seconds, but I can give you a good argument that makes you go, what? I thought these people were crazy, or I thought these people didn't have good arguments. So that's our most popular video series.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And again, I think you don't have to get into too much detail. People, their attention span, I mean, you've got a Father Spitzer and someone like you. You're both so well educated and so well versed. But you are well aware that people only can take in so much information, right?
Well, I can only take in so much information.
Yeah, me too.
So these 2 nice things are great for me.
Yeah. Yep.
But you're right. There's a glut of information out there right now, and they're not, even if they gave me 30 minutes, the way kids' brains are wired now, most of them are not going to be able to latch on to most of what you're saying in a 30-minute discussion, a talk, unless it's a discussion. If I can do a Socratic dialogue with somebody, which is what we do in classes, then they'll give you an hour. They'll stay for a long time because you're engaging their brain. But most of what they're learning is didactic. They're just being fed, and so they don't have that attention, even in classrooms. The studies are now showing in classrooms, kids don't. When I was a kid, I don't know if this was true with you, Teresa, but when I was a kid in classrooms, you had a 1-hour class. And you sat there for 1 hour and you learned. Yeah, they don't do that anymore. In most classrooms, you've got these little segments, and then you move on to another topic, and then a little segment of that, and you move on because these kids can't hold their attention span for that long.
Wow.
So, so if they can't do 90 seconds, we got a real problem, but I think it's working.
Yeah. When we come back, we have to take a break in a little bit, but I want to talk about the importance of doing this with love, and I know that you guys are experts at that. And I was very, very heartbroken by that story that broke not too long ago, very recently, of that young couple, that influencer couple. And they found out that their baby was, or they think it wasn't even 100%, but the baby possibly had Down syndrome, and they ended up terminating. And the reactions, especially from Christians. Yeah, let's talk about that when we come back. HealingTheCulture.org with co-founder Camille Pauley. Thanks for tuning in. Welcome back to Catholic Connection. Great to have Camille Pauley on with us yet again. She's a co-founder of Healing the Culture. Beautiful website, important website in helping us understand the dignity of the human person. And of course, also behind it is the amazing Father Robert Spitzer, also from EWTN, and of course the Magnus Center, and so many wonderful books and lectures and teachings. He's just phenomenal, and so is Camille. Talking during the break, Camille, about, and even going into this next segment, about the importance of expressing ourselves with love, which doesn't mean we have to minimize our argument, not speak truth. But I was referring, and we were discussing a very horrific story that's been in the news a lot lately about that young couple, the married couple who are big influencers online, and they were excited to announce that they're expecting their baby, and then they come to find out that after they did some testing that apparently the baby had Down syndrome, and so they decided to have an abortion. And there was a huge outpouring of, I guess, positive and negative. And they claim, and so did a couple of other outlets, say that the Christian people were among the worst and the most horrific in terms of their comments. Now, there were, I'm sure, some people who were mean. I'm sure there were other people, and I know people who weighed in on it and were very kind and offered them some resources. But that just, I think, begs a question, and to remind ourselves, is it not important for us to let them know, as that old Catholic hymn used to say, we are Christians by our love?
Well, short answer is yes. That is true. This was the YouTuber Jesse Ridgway. I think he has like 4 million subscribers. Yeah. And first thing I have to say is that's not the pro-life movement. I mean, I've been in this movement for over 30 years, and I have very rarely, you can count it on probably one hand, the number of times that I have ever encountered somebody who is vicious in their conversation about people who are pro-choice or who have had abortions. That's just very uncommon. And so, you got to ask yourself, who are these people who are making these kinds of comments? It's not the pro-life movement. Whoever these people are don't have the heart of the pro-life movement and don't understand what it is that we stand for and who we are. But also, when you are online, people say things without realizing how it's going to sound to somebody else as well, and it can be interpreted as somebody really condemning you when you're already hurting, when you've already been through an abortion, and when you're already, everybody who has an abortion has a heart. God gave us all a heart, and they're already going through some kind of a grief and maybe even some shame. So yeah, you need to treat the other with love. At the same time, you need to treat them with truth as well, because truth is love.
Mm-hmm.
And I will tell you, this story really hit me hard because I experienced the exact same thing as Jesse Ridgway did. I was given a prenatal diagnosis of Down syndrome for Juliet, my daughter, who, by the way, does not have Down syndrome. And the way they phrase it, the way the medical establishment phrases it, makes you think that you are going to have not only a child with Down syndrome, but a messed up life, and everything's going to be horrible. And they don't ask you, how can we help you? They ask you, what would you like us to do about this? Right. So the whole medical institution is geared towards telling you you're going to have a Down syndrome child, which is not true. He even mentioned this wasn't a positive diagnosis. The child was likely to have Down syndrome. I know that test. I know what they do. There's a certain percentage where you hit certain key points in your age, certain things they're looking for in the child. Or they'll say you'll have a certain possibility of have a certain probability of having a kid with Down syndrome, and if it's over a certain probability, they call that positive diagnosis. And so, not only are you being deceived about your child may not have Down syndrome, but you're also being pressured. We got the phone call, with the lady saying, "We'd like you to go through genetic counseling so you can decide what you want to do." And I was like, "Well, what do you mean what I want to do?" And she says, "Well, whether or not you want to continue the pregnancy." And I said, "So you mean if I decide to love my child no matter what kind of disability she may have, do I need this genetic counseling?" And she was like, "Well, no." And she hung up because it was very awkward for her, But Jesse Ridgway probably didn't have that background of 30 years of, or 20 years at that time of, pro-life advocacy. And so he's being pressured into this, and then he gets all this pressure online. And that's going to hurt and be hard. But you got to teach people the truth. It is not a nightmare, which is what he called it, an objective nightmare to have a child with Down syndrome.
He said, "I didn't sign up for this." That was very harsh. He said, "I didn't sign. This is not what I signed up for." And I thought, okay, well, God forbid, what happens if you have a baby? The baby's fine, God willing, and yet later in life, the baby is diagnosed with something as the child gets over. So you didn't sign up for that either.
None of us sign. Yeah, and that's kind of the problem, is this whole attitude that we sign up for everything. When we take life in terms of, I'm going to sign up for this, I'm going to do it this way, and I'm going to do it my
choice.
Way. Your life is very small. Yeah, your life is not bigger and more free. It's very small because you're not open to great possibilities that God has for your life. And that's kind of the message we need to be teaching people. We did a video on success. People think that success is just, me deciding to do it my way and do whatever I want. And they don't see success as me entering into an opportunity for love and goodness and mystery and sacrifice and surrender and generosity when I'm hit with circumstances that I didn't sign up for. That's the meaning of love, right? That's what life is all about. And that's the message the pro-life movement should be teaching. It should be encouraging, not condemning.
Yeah. And with that in mind, in terms of being kind and loving, there is unfortunately a movement within the pro-life movement itself, which it just really, to me, seems so counterproductive, where people want to charge or make the women who've had the abortions or having abortions pay legally. I'm not talking about financially. Basically, treat them as criminals.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that is right. It's a movement. It started few years ago, and it's really picked up a lot of steam. There are big names in the pro-life movement who support this, and unfortunately a whole lot of kids are falling for it. It's this idea that the woman has committed a murder. She should be punished as any other person who commits a murder. It's a matter of justice, is what they say. And I have so much to say about this. We actually are doing a video on this soon, but I have so much to say about this, we don't even have time. The biggest problem with this movement is that they're totally disconnected from what's really happening when they make this justice argument. It isn't true that it is not a matter of justice to throw the woman in prison. Teresa, look at what you've got. We've known this as a movement for 40 years. Everybody knows this. This is why we're about the mother and the child. Because you've got a woman who, in the vast majority of cases, statistics from the abortion movement itself bears this out. From the secular, surveying organizations bears this out. You've got a woman who in over 70% of the cases has been pressured to have an abortion and doesn't even want one. She's been told by the society her whole entire life that what's going to make you happy, successful and have a high quality of life is a career. Do something with yourself. So now she's going to have to drop out of school, she thinks. She's going to be fired from her career. She's not going to be able to climb the ladder of success. And the whole culture has told us this is how you define who you are. Suddenly she's pregnant, and now she's got everybody telling her, you're going to lose your life. Your life is going to be ruined. Your choices are ruined. You're going to lose your boyfriend. You're going to have to drop out of school. And then she's got a whole movement of industries, the education industry, the medical industry, right? The popular entertainment industry, music industry, media, film, fashion, business. Everybody's telling her abortion is a sacrament. It's your way out. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not a baby. It will save your life. You're a hero if you do it. So out of fear, she goes against her basic instinct. Out of pressure, out of being abandoned by her boyfriend in most cases, she goes and gets an abortion. And we're going to put her in jail?
Mm-hmm.
I look at that and say, what are you thinking? This is not just a matter of this is not compassionate. This isn't just. The whole culture is carved out to force her into this mentality that abortion is the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And also, if they're going after, so how do they want to see this adjudicated, basically? Because you have millions upon millions of abortions that have taken place since 1973 and even before. So how do you're going to go after the women who had an abortion 5 years ago, 10 years ago? How is that just? So some people are going to get arrested and charged and some others aren't?
Well, it's curious that some of the biggest names who are supporting this are women who have had abortions and now have turned pro-life. And I don't see them standing in line saying, throw me in jail because I did this too. You know, I just, there's that kind of angle to it as well. And I just really caution people when I understand the attraction. You know, it's murder. We should treat them the same. The baby deserves justice. I understand that. But don't just, knee-jerk into this logical progression that really lacks the finer points. Because there's a whole host of issues you're going to cause. If you start trying to push this in pro-life states, like I live in South Dakota, we're a pro-life state. We're the best pro-life state in the country. Abortions are illegal here, except to save the life of the mother. And you try to push something that says, but we should throw the woman in prison now. We're going to change overnight, and you're going to save no babies. You're going to have people saying, I'm not voting for that. We better make it legal then if you're going to put them in jail because it's illegal. I mean, that's the culture we live in. We're not in a culture where politically people are going to buy that. So there's also the practical arguments that this is causing a lot of damage to the pro-life movement, a lot.
Well, those people who are prominent and have changed their minds that may have even had an abortion before, they know all the information that you and I are sharing this morning. They know it well. They know in terms, because not only did they personally experience it, but if they're out there as pro-life speakers, the information is at hand in terms of what the majority of women go through. The majority of women are not, dancing into an abortion facility. The majority of them are pressured. They met choice, air quotes, because they feel they have no choice. And
this
they
is
know
statistical
this.
fact. Yeah, 70% of women who've had an abortion self-identify that they were coerced and didn't want it in the first place.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're going to throw them in jail. That makes sense. Yeah, we really need that right now. I want to play one of your clips because they're so well done. I just want to give people a taste of it and encourage them to go to the website, healingtheculture.org. We're going to play the one that's up first on the website, Camille. Is abortion, and that's kind of what we were just talking about. Is abortion necessary for success? Roll it, Richard, please.
I'm Camille Pauley with Healing the Culture. When you hear people tell you that abortion increases human flourishing, they're usually talking about something that philosophers call happiness level 2. The Greeks called this kind of happiness ego. In Latin, it's felix. We can refer to it as the ego high. It's the kind of happiness that comes from personal independence, success, achievements, winning, power, control, popularity, and superiority. Now, there's nothing necessarily wrong with experiencing happiness from things like success and achievement, or even from having power or being popular. But wise people warn us that living for level 2 as our dominant identity, as if it were what makes life worth living, will eventually cause an extreme and intense crisis in the human soul. Why? Well, because you were made for more than self-advancement. You were made for love. When we sacrifice other people in order to get ahead or to increase our own opportunities for control or independence or achievement, success or recognition in the eyes of the world, we're actually radically underliving our lives. Abortion advocates have convinced us that sacrificing our own children through abortion will make us happier. they are wrong. What makes human beings truly happy is giving ourselves away in love, compassion, and goodness to the people who need us the most, especially our own children.
That's so well done. And I love the fact that it's your delivery is factual, firm, but still very appealing. I don't feel like you're lecturing me or talking down to me.
Yeah, thank you. I have an incredible team that has worked really hard on taking Father Spitzer and sort of digesting him down into 90 seconds.
Yeah, good luck with that. How long does that take? I mean, that man is like, he's so brilliant. His brain is so big.
That's interesting. To prepare a 90-second video can take literally 2 months.
Yeah.
When you're trying to get it down into that short amount of time. And sometimes we'll hear pro-lifers say, well, that's not an effective approach because you're talking to people who don't believe it's the baby, and so you're not going to have an impact on them because they don't believe they're sacrificing a child. Well, that's not what the statistics show, and that's not what my experience show. People know this is a baby. They convince themselves that it's not in order to do what they already know is wrong. So yes, you do have to bring up the biology, the philosophy about this is a human person, this is
yeah, but you can't do it all at once. You have to first engage them, which is what you're doing. And by the way, I love the way you talked about the ego, because I always, when I give my testimony, I always talk about ego being an acronym, easing God out, which is exactly what happens. And as you said in your video clip there, so much information, research from secular entities shows that when we only focus on self, we're miserable. We have to have you back on. Fantastic. Please give Father a big hug from me. You're both doing such great work. HealingTheCulture.org. Check it out. Great stuff. We'll be right back. Richard and I were saying that when people were standing in line in heaven for brains before we were set down to earth, Father Robert Spitzer got the vast majority of the brain knowledge. And the man is amazing. He's so brilliant, and he does such great work. And of course, don't forget, you can also see him on Father Spitzer's Universe with Doug Keck. Okay, what's coming up tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow? Sorry, that's my English training with Shakespeare. On Catholic Connection, we have Peter Gagnon with the Inside Word at EWTN. He brings us up to date on all the wonderful events we're covering in the US of A and, of course, around the world as well, because we are everywhere. Fact Check Friday. Gosh, there's so many stories. I think I want to go back to the Claire Abernathy story and dive into language and how important language is when you're reading a story, when you're using phrases. I'm also going to be bringing up, I don't know how I'm going to do this in 90 minutes next week, but I'm going to bring this up to the youngsters, young people at the EWTN Academy, where I'm speaking on Wednesday, and I'm presenting on radio and TV, and helping them understand how the language also builds a story and builds a certain angle. And sometimes it's very, very bad, such as we talked about before with Camille, the idea of pro-choice or reproductive rights, those types of things, or gender-affirming care. What nonsense is that? All right, so that is the show for tomorrow. We will have also a very important interview, speaking of the whole transgender ideology, a medical expert talking about how dangerous the so-called transitions are for minors. Have a great Thursday. Talk to you at the end of the week, God willing, tomorrow on a Friday. A domani. Ciao, ciao.